Howdy. Today, we'll be learning about two famous mathematical curves in history. This is Around the Poles in a few minutes. The first pole that we'll be learning about is the parabola. The parabola is named for the two Greek words para and bole, respectively meaning beside and throw. Putting them together, it means to throw beside or to make a comparison. Apollonius of Pergia, who lived in the 2nd to 3rd centuries, is given the credit of naming the parabola. In ancient times, there was the proven to be impossible question of doubling the cube, or, in the simple form, making the volume of a cube go from 1 to 2. It turned out that using the traditional method of a pen and compass, which was used to create geometric shapes in the ancient world, was impossible. Menaechmus, a student of Plato, decided to go against the pen and compass and decided to use a geometric method, or in this case a geometric means of 1 and 2, to be able to discover the cube root of 2. The consequence of this was that he created two curves on a graph, and the point in which they touched each other than the origin, was the answer to the question. Here is the geometric mean, which, unlike the usual mean of taking two numbers together and then dividing them by 2, instead it was taking two numbers and square rooting them together. In the case of Apollonius, he found two geometric means that he later graphed and which he was able to find the answer. Menaechmus was a mathematician and philosopher, while Apollonius was an astronomer, geometer, mathematician, and philosopher. Both were Greek. And now onward to the ellipse, which is named for the Greek word for deformed, in the context being a deformed circle, or an oval. Apollonius, who was already mentioned before, also named the ellipse, while Menaechmus, previously mentioned, was the first to write about it and to make it a known thing in ancient times. Euclid wrote about its curve, as he noticed how it was, unlike a circle, more expanded and more stretched. This curve has 4 formulas attached to it. There are 2 pairs of the same formula, however, they each have their own variants, henceforth why there are 4, depending on the circumstances. And as you can see, here are the 4 circumstances on the right side that determine how to measure an ellipse. The longer axis, by the way, is called the major axis, while the shorter one is the minor. Now, within an ellipse, on the major axis specifically, there are 2 points that help in measuring the outline of the ellipse, and very accurately too. These points on their own are called the focus points. Together, they are called the foci. The foci are used to measure a point that is tied to an ellipse. And when you add the distance from the foci, they are equal to the length of the major axis itself. And so depending on the length of the major axis, it determines how deformed the ellipse is. The location of the foci is based on the formula c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Now, for those who are learning trigonometry, you will recognize this as being almost like the Pythagorean theorem, but instead of adding a squared and b squared, you are subtracting. Now, we already mentioned Menaechmus and Apollonius, so let's focus instead on Euclid of Alexandria, who was a mathematician and is considered today to be the father of geometry. Now, I hope that this video made it significantly easier to learn about the parabola and the ellipse. Unfortunately, there aren't enough videos on YouTube that can explain the material in a very straightforward manner and in a much simpler form. Here are the websites that I use to research the material, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Doesn't matter if you subscribe or not, because this video is made for a grade. And regardless, I hope this video can be useful for students for the year that this was published and for students in the future. Thank you so much and have a good day.